Going on, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. I really do. So, I got a few different things I want to go over. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves. What's on the screen right now is obviously Lahaina. That's not going to be so much what I want to talk about, but I do want to every now and then come back to this and talk about it briefly, if anything, because obviously it's an insane tragedy what happened here. And I've been following this very closely since it happened. And I covered a little bit of it, talked about what I think had occurred, and I think the evidence kind of speaks for itself. When you see houses and cars that have just been completely incinerated, and yet there's trees as a buffer in between them. Things that should have burnt. Like here, even right here, where you see the trees are standing, but there's metal that's been liquefied in many cases, and that's obviously not natural by any means. And I think it's important to keep this in the back of our minds, even in the forefront at times, as an example of what they're capable of. There's not, or should I say, it's not always going to be as overt as this, right? I mean, they definitely needed to do this to Maui.
Hello guys, Eric West here, HawaiiRealEstate.org. Thank you so much for watching the video. I asked you to do three
This is a
things
good
to
channel.
help people
I'm gonna wait till we get some people in here. It's Hawaii Real Estate. He's been covering this since the beginning. He was a real estate agent, obviously, and has been kind of documenting it along the way. But he's done some real good work covering a lot of that stuff. And I was going through some images earlier, and it's just amazing to me that this. It shouldn't be. I should expect this, but it is amazing to me to see that this hasn't really done what it should have done by waking people up. There's been so many instances, well, just as I was talking about, of things that are clearly out of the norm that would never happen in a wildfire. And not just that, but the way the bureaucracy was around it, the red tape that was drawn, and you can't go photograph, and it was just insane. We know the land grab, the transfer of wealth, all of these things that are occurring, and it's sad. The chat's on. I don't. There it is. Now I got it. What's up, CMB, New Edge, Shannon? I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Like I said, this isn't really going to be the topic of conversation. It's going to be a little all over the place, like it usually is. There's a few different things I want to talk about. I'm getting together things, ideas, different ways I want to approach things for my other channel. I still haven't quite figured it out yet. I gotta balance some things, right? It can't be done the way that I'm doing it now, clearly, because, well, we're not reaching anybody. The people that I think ultimately I'm going to get as a base, the strength of the channel, I think they're already here. And now it's time to just kind of cut my losses, right? There was other people that I kind of had a feeling, I guess I'll say, that would join. Not people specifically. It's weird. Don't worry about it. I guess that's not going to happen, and I shouldn't be surprised, but I kind of am. So I am going to be starting that up here pretty soon, and it's going to be. At first, it's going to seem quite a contrast to what you guys are probably used to from me, but it has to be. It has to be. So I guess without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start getting into some of this stuff. Now, at any given time, any questions or anything you guys have, anything you want to talk about, feel free, throw them in there. I do what I can to read the chat as we go. I may miss things from here to there, but I try to stay up with them, and this isn't set in stone. This isn't a live stream that it's like I have to cover some of these things. Some of it I do want to get through, but at the same time, it's not a must. So far right resurrects Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy theories. This pisses me off, just to be quite frank with you guys. Something as important as this that I think we all could really what happened there? Sorry about that. It's aggravating, right? Because when we know what really is happening here on a global scale, but especially with powerful people here in the United States, and then they just keep referring to these things as conspiracy theories without ever a shred of evidence to support their theories, but at the same time denouncing every credible thing that has come up. And it's like, oh, you're just and yeah, we know the term, we know why you use it, but nonetheless, it is frustrating because this alone should have brought. Yes, that's correct, Shannon. It doesn't, I don't know, man. I really should spend a couple of videos rehashing this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. Not that right now it would do any good, because again, I have no reach. That's got to change. That's going to change. So, I mean, is it worth catching a strike and not being able to talk to you guys? Really, I think ultimately what will happen is this channel will be somewhat of a hub for you guys and me, and to communicate with each other, because the next channel that you guys are subscribing to will not be quite the same and will probably gain some traction. Maybe, right? I mean, it kind of was discouraging to see that when you're searching, scratching the surface, that my other channel came up when it really should have absolutely nothing to do with it, other than they share some subscribers. And I don't know how that algorithm works, whether or not a subscriber, like, it shouldn't. Maybe it does. That's what I hope so, because if not, that means that they're using which I'm sure they are anyway, voice technology, even facial recognition, things like that, and just associating it, behind it. I may not have any videos posted on there, but that doesn't mean that they're not using the camera. When you click that accept, that long ass thing that nobody reads, they tell you all that. They say, well, we're going to document all this. We're recording all of this information. We're going to go through your phone, and if there's anything of significance, we're going to mine that, and we'll sell that to whoever needs it. And unfortunately, this still is. I would love to see a move to Rumble. Not really, because I can't even post there. But screw me, everybody else. I mean, if it actually was what it was claiming to be, like the free speech beacon, and that's what needs to happen. Is, that's really what needs to happen. Is BitChute needs to get their shit together, because that is an actual free speech platform. Rumble's not. They like to pretend they are, but they're not. It's like Twitter or X pretending that they are, and they're not. Right? You can say more, but you still are under the thumb of the government. And regardless of the Twitter files and all the things that have come out and been like, well, now it's the same game. They're only going to let you say what they think you. Like the reinstatement of Alex Jones, and that's something we're going to talk a little bit about. It's ridiculous to me, because all it says to me is that they got something else up their sleeve, so we can do this dance again. so we could pretend that, oh, it was Alex Jones rhetoric on Twitter, and there will be something. Give it a few weeks. There's going to be another scandal, I guess, is what the media will probably try to make it out to be. Probably absolutely, really nothing as far as people that are aware of what's really going on. It'll just be like another thing that the media does. But I would say don't be so fast to move on from it, because they're probably going to let you know quite a bit during that time period of whatever it is that Alex Jones gets them, because they're going to be focused on it. This is all designed. It could not be more obvious, right? That Elon Musk, it's an illusion. They're making it seem like, oh, it's the Wild West over there on X. Anything goes. Everybody is just radicalized, and they're promoting extremist content, and it's off the wall. Shit's bound to go down. That's what the mainstream media would have you believe. When actuality, it's pretty damn boring. You can scroll through, and yeah, you may see stuff that you're not going to get from the mainstream media, but it's like it's not even close to the truth, right? Because that's still being censored. And unfortunately, the truth has certain facets to it that they're trying to make illegal to even discuss right now. Groups of people, right? I mean, and that's a problem, because as intelligent as it was to masquerade under another's identity so you can carry out your demonic, satanic acts, it worked. And now we can't call out those acts without being labeled under a certain name. And that's very soon to be illegal. 100% illegal. Yes, your First Amendment does not protect you against anything that they don't want being said or expressed. It'll give you all the rights you want until they don't want you to have that right anymore. It's a game to these people. But there are a lot of people that truly do cherish these rights, that take their oaths, that take being an American, that take freedom itself very seriously, and will die for it. And they know that, and unfortunately, they're doing everything they can to push these people into creating the perfect type of conflict so they can start something. Because once something starts, well, then Big Brother's got to come in and save the day, right? We can't have whatever. We can't have a civil war about to break out. We can't have this radicalized sector of society. We can't have... So it gives them the justification needed to swoop in with their martial law and heavy-handed tactics and quell whatever type of resistance or over-the-top rhetoric that may be justified. All right, let's move on. This shit's boring me. Sorry. How you guys doing? Anything interesting going on? Any interesting stories that you've seen you want to talk about before I really get going here? Because quite honestly, I'd rather just freeball it and talk about anything else but the stuff that I've been talking about. Except when I get my research goggles on, so to speak, you know, I get caught up in what's happening, and that I get tunnel vision and only focus on. You guys seen it with COVID and nanotechnology, right? It was like a whole year straight, year and a half, where I didn't even talk about anything else. other than whatever rabbit hole I was currently going down. And it's kind of the same, right? Like, these things are important to me. And they should be important to you. And I know they are for those that are subscribed to me. And I pretend that some person that has never seen this channel before might come across. And I try to give some type of context as to that. Not that I have to worry that that will ever happen again on this channel. But that's why I do that. But I know it is important to you guys. It's super important that these subjects get the time of day, and they're not going to, right? Maybe that Joe Rogan or Fox News or Tucker Carlson or, they brush over these types. Alex Jones, they'll cover these topics, but they won't cover them in any real sense. I mean, Alex Jones did for a little while there as COINTELPRO until they stopped, doing his 24/7 monitoring, and he went too far on Sandy hoax. Then they're like, "Damn it, dude! What did you say? Like, we didn't check in with you for 48 hours, and you're talking about all of the shit. Like, yeah, you can talk about these things, but at the same time, you're COINTELPRO, brother. You're not." You let a little too much out of the bag at times, and then they gotta bring it back and make it look like they're gonna clamp down. That probably was all part of the show too. I don't think for 1 second that anything about Alex Jones being sued for billions of dollars, for $1 billion. Are you kidding me? No, they're making a statement, and they're making it against one of their cohorts. Where do you live, Shannon? Where do you live? I want street address, apartment number, what time of hour during the day that you may be there. No, I'm just kidding. No. He woke a lot of people up, right? Alex Jones did wake a lot of people up, and I think it was perfect the way that it happened, because and this is true, maybe not for you, but they become, when this happens, when somebody, let's give an example or a hypothetical here. Let's say Alex Jones was out there in one of my early channels when I actually had somewhat of a following, right? When I had larger numbers, we'll say. Now, somebody that's amplified by the beast system, we know what that means, right? Just what they in quotations, when they amplify that, right? He gets the traction, ends up waking people up to certain things. Now to me, those people were already looking. Like, you don't just stumble across, maybe you do, but for the most part you don't stumble across Alex Jones. It tends to be that you're already looking for something. You already have an idea that things aren't quite what they're presented to be. So you have this other guy there, that's Alex Jones, that's talking about these things, and it's like, well, wait a minute, this is not at all what the mainstream media is talking about, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. So you go to him. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there, and he will tell you the surface level of the other side, of the truth. He will scratch the surface of the truth. Meanwhile, there is just an absolute incredible amount of information that, if people knew, it would blow the lid off so many stories that were doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, but going in depth with it all and proving these things. Now, somebody with Alex Jones resources, which were many, incredible, like people that really could do that, never seemed to do it, right? And then when they did finally get into some deeper water during the Sandy hoax thing, what happened? Well, we've seen what happened, right? Not only did he recuse himself. Not only did he backtrack and say, "Oh, I don't believe that. I was kind of just going off," and say, when we know damn well, right? Because again, there were actual other people that were going deep in it, that were like just picking the whole thing apart, especially that one. There were some other ones too, Orlando and the Charlie Hebdo attack. I mean, early on, back when the heyday of ScrewTube, when people were allowed to do this, it was much easier for them to try to defend against your position with the backing, the knowledge you've obtained from Alex Jones, as it would be had you stumbled upon one of our real channels, like myself, or back in the day when Press Reset Earth was actually putting out material. Clearly Jeff, right? And then another guy that I haven't even, it was Red. Does anybody remember? Like Earth, something, Red Pill Revolution? That was a good channel. I don't know if anybody here remembers those. That was way, way, way back in the day, right? And people were doing a damn good job breaking that stuff apart. And you could find that. You could find it really easy. And they knew that. So they had to do something. And Alex Jones was kind of always there doing that as his job, right? Keep in mind, just like Tucker Carlson, his father was CIA. Alex Jones admits this. He talks many times about how his entire family is extremely involved in the intelligence community. Now, that you don't have that happen and then have some crazy lunatic nut job conspiracy theorist. No, he's clearly he's doing what his job is. He's doing what he's told. And only covering a small section. So these people don't need to, they're gatekeepers. You don't need to go further. You're getting the scoop, right? They'll spend 2.5 hours barely breaking the surface of a topic that if you just scrolled for a half second further, come across the real channel that would actually show you that this shit was clearly a psyop, that they're lying through their teeth, and none of it makes sense if you actually looked. The fact that he's being reinstated to me is a signal, and I've said this actually before, just like QAnon. When you see the return of Alex Jones, when you see the return of QAnon, and I didn't really look to see if there's a return of QAnon, so let's do that now. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot within the last couple of weeks. So they're bringing that back, and they're bringing Alex Jones back. This should, if I've taught anybody anything, not to say that you didn't already know, but if anybody hadn't, it's an indication, right? It's an indication. That means maybe we're a month and a half, 2 months out. I like when they give me these indicators because then I can narrow in the time frame. I know how they operate to a certain degree, so now that I see that Alex Jones is being reinstated, I can't imagine that we're going to go more than 3 months from a significant attack because they want the psychological association of Alex Jones being reinstated, because the media has been telling you how dangerous of a place Twitter, X, is now, right? It's just, like I said, the Wild West. It's just people, it's absolute chaos, it's extremism, white supremacy, neo-Nazism, nationalism, Christian nationalism, anti-Semitism. The list goes on and on and on. They've been, do my best to cover it so it's not news to us when it does happen. You really like that term, huh? It's just it's off to me when these types of things, after labeling Twitter, I'm just gonna keep calling it Twitter, man. Elon Musk's gonna have to change it back because there's many of us out here that are just not gonna call it X. They've been doing everything they can to let you know that people that jump on here can become radicalized. Then they bring Alex Jones back. At already Tucker Carlson's move from Fox, we know it was orchestrated, right? It couldn't have been any more orchestrated. You have Fox is going to let their number one go for what? For nothing? For nothing. And they created this fake lawsuit that really was bullshit, right? The whole thing that had absolutely nothing to do with Tucker. It was a way to make it look like this was a legitimate reason to get him off the air and on to Twitter. And they did. But it was not legitimate. It was all bullshit, and it couldn't be more obvious. And again, they're intelligence agent families. Both of them. And Elon Musk, right? The Antichrist himself. So, the real Antichrist. So if I had to say, I would give it 3 months max. But my intuition would tell me about a month and a half from now is when a big one's about to occur. Yeah, right. L. It's funny, right? EL. They always do that with these types of characters throughout history. The ones Elohim, L. Let's find all the L's. What should I be like? Prophet? How should I word it? Gods, prophets, notables, and nobility. Beginning with L. Yeah, El Chapo. But to me, it looks like that we're not far away. And we've been hearing about Times Square in New York City for a decade now. About this attack. They trained for it about 5 years ago. New Jersey and New York trained for a coordinated attack, or an attack with a coordinated response. And it was about a nuclear weapon going off. And then we start seeing, what was it, last year? Maybe, yeah, it was last year when we started seeing these malls in New York City and these public service announcements talking about what if, and that was the only city to do it, was New York. You know, what happens if a nuclear bomb goes off? Not to say that that's what will occur. Just think it's interesting that it's only New York that seems to be really concerned about something that's going to happen around New Year's. Which, I mean, I don't know how many, but I would say probably 1 million or better people gather around Times Square every year. So if you wanted to release a bioweapon, if you wanted to do, you know, if you wanted to cause as much havoc and chaos as you could, definitely one of the best ways to do that. Yeah, Shannon, good call. Also spraying stuff in subways, doing a lot of nefarious shit, really. Over the fact they got these trucks like they have in China now driving down. I just seen one, not in person, but on a video, and they weren't even talking about it. But I seen one. You know how they have different reasons for it. Like if you see one in Florida and Miami or something, there are these giant trucks, and they have these like. Looks like a chimney, kind of. It's a cylinder on the back just shooting this steam type of shit out, right? This vapor. And in Florida, it's to kill mosquitoes. But when you see the exact same thing in New York, they got a different reason for it, and that's, oh, well, it's this special concoction of water vapor and carbon and I forget what else, and it binds to other atmospheric particles and makes them heavy so they fall, so it clears up the pollution. Maybe. I mean, that could be. That could be, but it does sound a little bit suspect. Especially when you see the exact same style. Now, I mean, I'm sure you could probably rent a truck like that to spray shit out, you know? So maybe they have different reasons for doing it. I don't know, but I don't like the idea of major, like when they're going through subways and they're evacuating subways and canceling all rides for like 2 to 3 hours and saying like, we need to get rid of, nobody gets bit by mosquitoes in New York City. There's not a mosquito problem in New York City. There's barely one in upstate New York. I mean, yeah, you will get bit on certain nights in the spring and summer, but it's not, we're not living in like New York's not Florida or any one of the interstates. Although, yeah, you do get mosquitoes here, but in New York City, just like in any city, you don't have a mosquito problem, right? But that's kind of what they were using was this mechanism, and I just draw to that because that was the first time I ever seen them spraying shit was for that reason in Florida. Then I seen the same thing happen in New York City. I was like, well, that's. And then I looked into it, and they're like, "Oh, well, this is why we're spraying shit in the air this time," and it was about pollution. I was like, "Okay, well, if you say so, I don't trust it. Nonetheless, I don't trust especially when they're lying about it. When you clearly see chemicals being sprayed out of the back of planes, you know, horizon to horizon, and they're like, no, this is normal. You've always seen this. No, I haven't. No, definitely not. No, you have. You have." No. Increasing numbers of Americans say anti-Semitism is a serious problem. No, skip it, right? Because this is going to be an article that's going to keep popping its head in all the time. All the time. And a good indication of the people that are waking up is the fact that they have to keep doing this. It's almost as if the whole Hamas Israeli thing is kind of designed as of late to make sure that people that are waking up, not only do they have the terms conspiracy theorist, extremist, radicalized, far right, nationalist, white supremacist, and probably many others that I'm forgetting. Let's add anti-Semitic to it. And just like they did with the QAnon thing, right? The umbrella I talk about, when QAnon started making its rounds and they started putting as many things that had absolutely nothing to do with QAnon as possible under that umbrella, saying like, well, you know, this one person, this one day typed this one comment that said something similar to this. So now we're going to create this whole mainstream media article and say that anybody who thinks this way is tied directly into QAnon. It's like, what's that about? But the thing about anti-Semitism is they've already made a lot of progress on legislation. So as where you couldn't really make laws against some of the other things, right? Because their ideologies, their opinions, or the way people think. When it comes to anti-Semitism, they've already established a very firm foundation, a good groundwork that allows for legislation to be built off of and accepted by the masses. So it will be probably the very first major chip away of your fundamental right to free speech that occurs. It's already occurring. But I do want to talk a little bit about Alex Jones before I get too far away of this whole ordeal. Alex Jones, conspiracy theorist, returns to X with Andrew Tate repost. Andrew Tate, another government op, another agent. MI6, MI5. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones has returned to X by reposting a message by controversial influencer Andrew Tate. Blah, 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 blah. Tate's message praised both Jones and X owner Elon Musk, claiming, "We're back." And I think I made a response to that. His account was reinstated after a poll by Musk with 70% of roughly 2 million. He likes to do that, right? But even when he doesn't get the response that he wants, he'll still go ahead with what he chooses anyway. There's been 2 different times where he did a poll, but it didn't matter. Didn't matter. Jones is the most notorious for falsely claiming the 2012 Sandy Hook school shooting was staged. He was ordered to pay $1.5 billion in damages to family members of the victims after courts found he had caused them to be subjected to harassment and death threats with his false claims. Now, that's bullshit. Just as I am now here, just as you do in any situation, you are allowed to say whatever it is that you want to say. Now, if Joe Schmo around the corner has a hair up his ass, or his panties in a twist, whatever the case is, if he's got an issue, if he's got a mental disorder, he's already looking for a reason to go off the edge. That may or may not be a real scenario. The media makes this shit up a lot of times, but even saying, give them that. Let's say that it was a real scenario where some crackpot lunatic that is hell-bent on causing harm to somebody stumbles across the channel that is simply saying an alternative version of events occurred. Should you be not allowed, no longer able to speak on these matters because of Joe Schmo? Because maybe somewhere out there, there's a person that could take what you say? Because if that's the case, then the mainstream media should have been shut completely down a long time ago. Because almost everything that comes out of the mainstream media's mouth is divisive, is incredibly incendiary. You never see anything about that, though. It's only these far-right factions or these little niches in the dark corners of YouTube. Right? And they know what they're doing with that when they say these things. Because if they're an authoritative source, if they're trusted, that means, well, then we, the mainstream media, which is the propaganda arm of the military-industrial complex, which is the military arm of the Zionist movement, they've deemed them to be okay. They're like, yeah, they're on our side. We'll allow, this, that, and the other. Anybody else who's saying otherwise, if we're not in control of it, it's got to go. And they're doing everything in their power right now to accomplish that, especially here in New York. It's unbelievable what's happening. At the same time, they're building concentration camps. I mean, that's what they are, right? No, Dustin, they're not. All they are these mega camps for foreigners. Yes, they're designed in the exact same manner and staffed by military personnel, and yeah, all that's, yeah, but that's not what they're intended for. Almost seems like that's what the whole thing was designed to do, right? With these illegals moving in, it's a kind of a win-win for them. Then they could be like, oh, well, as soon as Trump gets in, they start blasting off false flag after false flag, saying, and if some of them very well may be true, because there are a lot of countries out there that hate us, and they're just flooding through the borders, right? Well, then they'll have the perfect, oh, well, we already created these, but then as it slowly shifts to that, from that to, I don't know, these so-called far-right conspiracy theorists blowing up infrastructure, then they'll, just like they did from 9/11 with the Patriot Act, right? First it was, oh, it's the Muslims and we're going after people in caves, and then they started turning that apparatus in on the American people. It's going to be the same here. It's going to be like, well, we're creating these FEMA camps. We're creating these concentration camps so we can house these illegal immigrants. And as these foreign terrorists that have come here, or if they haven't, they will, carry these acts out themselves under the DHS and FBI, PSYOPs, military, of course. Then they'll get that and be like, oh, well, we need to create these laws and do this and, maybe make some more buildings to house whoever. And as that slowly dies off, the buildings still exist, the legislation still exists, and who's going to be the next? Oh, damn, that far-right extremist just took out half of Hoover Dam. Now we know what these people think like. We know their ideologies. We know how to profile them. AI's done a really good job. Is there a way we could protect America from these types of people going forward? I mean, we've had 3 of these attacks in 2 weeks. Can we do something? Oh, well, temporarily, it's just for good measure. Let's just get these people on a bus and we'll take them to these nice little government facilities. Just temporarily, of course. We want to make sure that America's safe. We want to protect you. Jones, who founded the conspiracy theory website InfoWars, was removed from other major platforms, including YouTube and Facebook. He was banned from Twitter. That's fucking insane to me. It's insane, man. The fact that this is a glimpse into the future with your social credit scores, your carbon tax, all of it. You don't play ball, you're eliminated from society. Calling him a hero, yada, yada, yada. I wanted to check this out.
How do people become radicalized? What exactly is extremism? When does it become dangerous? How do people become radicalized? What exactly is extremism? When does it become dangerous? To answer these questions, we will have a close look at 4 terms: radicalization, extremism, violent extremism, and terrorism. Radicalization is a process. People change over the course of their lives. When somebody assumes increasingly extreme opinions, this is called radicalization. These opinions may be political, social, or religious. That by itself is not a crime. But we must not look away. Where is the person's path taking them? Radicalization often starts with fascination for a topic or sympathy for a group. People who become radicalized like what their group does. This takes them deeper and deeper into an extremist ideology. Extremism is a clearly delineated world. This exact way is how society should function. Extremism has no interest in diversity, open-mindedness, or other views. An extremist idea can be a social order or a religious system. Virtually all extremism considers the world in terms of black and white. There are friends, there are enemies, nothing else. Such an idea can exist in a country that is ruled by fundamental Islamic rules. They govern public life, the law, and the administration of justice. It is a concept of society that is incompatible with our democratic order in Switzerland.
Yes, New Edge. Yes, indeed. And that's the problem, right? I mean, somebody like myself who's constantly, all I want is peace. All I want is for these evil scumbags to be called out and held accountable for destroying everything that they get their hands on. and which is everything, right? They've been infiltrating organizations, institutions, government body, everything that they can for a long time, to the point now where there's not much that they're not involved in. Now I want to see those people that advocate for anything that goes against our freedom. What's up, Radicalized Online? See that name brought back into the mix. Appropriate. Just in time. I want to see them held accountable. And I want to see peace flourish. And at no point ever do I think or advocate for violence being the way to achieve this. It clearly is not, and it would only work against us, right? And anybody who has a single brain cell understands that, right? That there's no point of using violence. That we don't have that on our side. It would never do any good. So peace. So people that advocate for, they tend to have the same thought processes on these things, and they tend to be peaceful people. But yet they are demonized and called extremist and made out to look, because we had all these psyops lately, right? And not even so much lately, they've been doing this since really the LAX airport shooting, where he was carrying a conspiracy theory book in his backpack, right? It was like one of the first times where I really heard them associate conspiracy theories with mass shootings, but it's only been on the increase since there, where they're like, well, this is the type of person, right? When my experience, and I'm sure many of yours as well, it tends to be that it's the psychopaths, the people that are bootlickers, the ones that'll just go along with whatever. Those are the people that are capable of this violence. When you watch these major gatherings of people of all walks of life, whenever there seems to be any type of violence, it always seems to be on the end of the people that are full in support of tyranny, of government, of whatever the current thing is, right? And you going against that pisses them off so much that they physically respond to it. They get violent. They do things that none of us ever would. But yet it is us that are dangerous. And of course, there'd only be one good reason that the DHS, DOJ, FBI, etc. label us as such, is because the information itself. It's because they don't really give a damn, obviously, because we're carrying out bombing campaigns in countless countries all over the world, killing innocent lives all the time. It's not about life. It's not about violence. All they care about is having control over the narrative. They don't want to be the emperor wearing no clothes. They need to have control over the narrative. They cannot allow people such as you and I looking for and finding, yet even spreading information that is counter to that narrative. So the danger is you. You are the problem. You're the violent extremist, even though you are the furthest thing from it. And that tends to be the way of it with almost everything. They do the bad shit, but yet they can flip it on the people who are opposed to it and call them the ones that are horrible. And as long as I've been alive, this is a tactic that's been being used, but it has been amplified and increased, especially since COVID.
This is called Islamic extremism or Islamism. Another extremist idea focuses on a culturally pure country that does not tolerate ethnic mixing. This view goes with xenophobia.
Oh, you mean Israel, right? Well, no. We don't mean Israel. Why not? Why doesn't Israel fall into that category? Because as far as I know, that is literally the only country that goes to the extents that they do. Nothing else even comes close. Look what they're doing to Ireland. Ireland, with an ethnocentric state of about 93% white Irish people. And that was a lot more up until about 10 years ago, where they started moving in all these all these immigrants, and people started getting pissed off because they're seeing crime go through the roof all of a sudden, and they're like, wait, we never had this problem. What the hell is going on? And at the same time, you got people that have been selected into their government that are saying, well, Ireland's too white. Well, do you know Ireland's history? Do you know why? Do you know what they have had to go through? Do you know about the genocide attempts? Do you know about the starvation? Like, there's a lot to it. You can't just brush all that aside and be like, oh, Ireland's too white. Let's move in a bunch of immigrants. Because they're going to notice, and they're going to say, like, wait a minute, we've lived here a long time. We grew up here. My family's grown up here. Our children have grown up here. We never had to witness 3 children being stabbed, one dying at the hand. Yeah, there are psychopaths, but the level of increase in that, so they know it. But the amount of demonization that has befallen Ireland for saying these things, the label far-right extremists being slapped on your everyday citizen, much as we're seeing here in the States, but to an extreme over there in Ireland, as an example. But yet, the exact same time, we have Israel literally saying we're going to expel all immigrants. You have Benjamin Netanyahu saying, no, we're going to get them out of here. This is Israelian. We only Jews are. That's okay? Why? Tell me why. Because they run the show. Because they're in charge of everything. And they can do it, but nobody else can. And this is the double standard that goes with so many things. The people that think that they run the show, that have a special title attached to their name, they think they're allowed to get away with whatever it is that they want. At the same time, the shit that they're getting away with, they're going to turn around and slap it on people that aren't even doing anything, but questioning them and labeling them as the people they actually are, if that makes sense. It does if you play it back, if you didn't understand it the first time.
Phobia, racism, and extreme nationalism. Such an ideology is against our Constitution. It is called right-wing extremism. There is an opposite ideology too.
Wait a minute. So right-wing extremism is against our Constitution? Apparently?
It involves the
Well, she's got an accent.
nationalism.
This can't be American, because our Constitution allows for right-wing extremism. Matter of fact, it was founded on what would be clearly labeled as right-wing extremism now, right? Would it not be? Would the founding fathers and the things that, because they are 100%. Their quotes, everything like that. That's very symbolic of what is happening. Because when they're attacking these values, these are the very values that this country was founded on. So if those things are right-wing extremists, then the biggest right-wing extremists would be the founding fathers of this country, and they've been making that case.
Such an ideology is against our Constitution. It is called right-wing extremism. There is an opposite ideology too. It involves the rejection of the state as a whole and any form of authority. Capitalism and the alleged class-based society are believed to be the root of all evil. This ideology is against...
That's the lie now, right? Now that's all right-wing. There is no left-wing extremism anymore. That's just the left. The left no longer believes that you should be able to speak freely. The left no longer believes in small government. The left no longer... I could go on and on. All those things have been abandoned by the left. The left is only authoritarian government control. Big tech, big corporations, massive government. That is... So I've been an anarchist, but I've been labeled differently by different people on different sides, right? The people on the right would see me as left because I didn't subscribe to all of what their value system was. And the people on the right, the left, will call me, or vice versa, because I didn't do the same for them, right? Because I'm my own person. I think for myself. I question things and I have my own beliefs. I want to get to the bottom of things, and if I see something making more sense as opposed to something that makes little, then I'll probably side with that a little bit more. The problem is that doesn't happen in politics. It's either you fully attach yourself to this team or the other, and that makes it confusing. And as we're moving more towards end times here, I think that's becoming more relevant in the sense that it's telling people that used to call themselves democratic, right, that were truly in the very spirit of it, of I guess what RFK currently kind of projects, even though I don't trust him at all. By the way, he was on Epstein's flight twice, he admitted recently. But no, he was with his family, and it's all in the up and up. Don't worry about it. The point is, they're going to keep moving in the direction that they call left, but is not left. While doing so, the further you move in that direction, the further things you pass that were once, like let's say you're moving, right? You're moving left, and there was something that was even ahead of you that once would have been so far left. But as you're moving left, you eventually pass that. And then once you pass it, what's that become? Well, that's now on your right. So something that used to even be far left, if the left keeps moving further, is now on the right. And they have, in a sense, moved so far left, if you could even call it that anymore, that everything dealing with freedom, patriotism, nationalism, religious freedoms, anything that is of the individual and their beliefs and their rights is now far right. That should let us know that there is a humongous problem with the governing bodies, with the people that are so-called in charge, that are running the show. If they continue to direct things, that leads, we're there. Not even leads to, we are there. It leads to, and we are at tyranny. Tyranny. And once we're where we are now, very bad things begin to happen. Those same people that for years they have been talking about being the problem, well, they start taking action against them. But before they do that, history has shown us there is always a major significant act, something big that occurs that allows them the justification to move forward with and it has to be big. It absolutely will have to be big. Or if it's not big, it'll have to be many of something kind of significant, which is kind of what I'm leaning towards myself, the way I see it. I think they'll pretend that this is their sleeper cells, and there's far-right extremists working with people that are so closely associated with Russian intel, and they have no way of knowing, and we're going to see fake attack after fake attack, and I think we'll see that. I think if I had to put a date on it, January 23rd sounds pretty good. Would be one of the first times we would see something. We'll see. We'll see how far off I am.
Against our constitution too. It is called left-wing extremism. There are other types of extremism too. They all reject the democratic and constitutional foundations of Switzerland, and they all passionately explain why they do so. Virtually all types of extremism have people who want to enforce their opinions through violence. They either support or promote violence.
Well, that's the thing, right? Maybe that's just in Switzerland, but that's kind of the common understanding of it, is the violence aspect. But what's interesting about this, that's why they have to keep creating these instances of far right how many times have I covered the DHS talking about these far right attacks that never occur? Like, remember the Gretchen Whitmer case, where supposedly this congresswoman was about to be kidnapped? There was this whole thing. It was all orchestrated by the FBI. Now that gets swept under the rug rather quick when they get found out. But they were never supposed to. It was supposed to be flawless and supposed to move through like all of the other ones. They always do this. What was it, like 98% of, and this is true, by the way. I may have the numbers a little bit wrong, but I promise you it's above 90%. I'm thinking like 97, 98. But 90% plus of all of the terrorist attacks that the DHS and FBI have stopped have been attacks that they themselves have created from the very start. The idea was theirs. All of it was theirs, except they find some poor schmuck that's down on his luck that needs some help, needs some money, needs something, that has nothing else to live. They're like, hey, man, you know, you do this for it. And of course, they don't admit they're the feds or whatever. And maybe sometimes they do. I don't know how it really, really works. But it always ends up being, and then we hear afterwards, like testimony from these people, or how it ends up playing. And if you go digging into, like, a lot of this is public information. It's not a secret that the FBI does this. It's just most people don't take the time to go bother and look. But 98%, 97, 90 plus a percent of all of the shit that they stop, they themselves created first. It was their idea. It was their concoction. It was whatever. And then let's get this guy involved. And then the mainstream, oh, here, look, here you guys go. Take it, CNN. And then the CNN will spin it and be like, this far right extremist, this conspiracy theorist was plotting to do this. Luckily, the FBI stepped in. They are the enemy of the people. They are doing everything they can to take your rights away. The government is so completely lost. There is no saving it. I don't know. There's no electing our way back into a normal society at this point. I don't know how that would ever occur. Also, I don't see violence as another alternative either. However, there are possibilities, and these are things that we need to start discussing, is how can we defeat this system without being violent, without doing, and there absolutely are ways to do it. But it involves a lot of people doing the same thing at once. And before I even start talking about this, we got to find a way where I can reach amount of people and actually have a voice, so we may or may not be successful in achieving at least some of the lesser of battles that are absolutely needed to make sure our families don't end up in the gulags, quite frankly.
Premism. It's like one of the rarest things in this country.
It's happened to Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, Richard Spencer. The list goes on. All of these individuals were deplatformed or kicked off of different web services after those services deemed comments they made hateful, a characterization they all deny.
We are experiencing what we see as a wave of deplatforming right now. Oftentimes when we talk about deplatforming, we talk about someone losing their account on social media. But deplatforming can exist in many different ways.
Deplatforming isn't just limited to individuals. The tactic is also being used to silence extremist websites. Shortly before he allegedly murdered 22 people at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, Patrick Crusius shared his manifesto to an obscure web forum called 8chan.
The website 8chan.
Such bullshit, man. I'm sorry. These guys, the FBI sucks. They suck at what they do. And I've been leaving a lot of X comments. So if you guys don't, if there's a sudden disappearance of a week longer, please do whatever you can to find out what happened to me.
That's where the suspected gunman in Saturday's attack
posted a 4-page anti-immigrant manifesto.
This wasn't the first time that an alleged mass shooter had posted a manifesto to 8chan. The individuals who allegedly carried out the Christchurch mosque shootings and the Poway synagogue shooting also posted their manifestos to 8chan. But this time the response to the shooting was different. Cloudflare.
Oh, and I got banned from Telegram, so I can't use that for a while. 3 months. So keep it going if anybody's still using it.
An internet infrastructure company decided to deplatform or stop providing its services to 8chan, effectively shutting down the site, at least for now.
There are about 1 million users of 8chan. 8chan is an empty piece of paper for writing on.
In response to the takedown, 8chan's owner, Jim Watkins, posted this video to YouTube.
It is clearly a political move to remove 8chan from Cloudflare. It has forced a lot of people to find other places to talk.
Today, deplatforming is the most popular tactic to deal with extremist content online. But does it actually work?
It's not necessarily going to create a causal chain where we get rid of hate online.
No, so what's the next step? So let's just jump ahead, right? Let's put their bullshit aside and let's say, like, because we see it. Anybody that's been paying attention sees the pattern. They know, like, okay, well, we need to do this much more. And then they're like, all right, well, then they start doing it. The media pushes as much as they can. And then finally, the pussies in Congress, I'm tired, guys. I'm not. The Christian in me tries to censor myself, but at the same time, I think, like, would God understand? And honestly, I think yes. So when I slip up, I'll do my best, but you're probably going to start hearing things on this channel that I normally don't say all that often because I catch myself. But I'm so fed up with it, and I think it requires a level of passion that isn't being given to it, and I'm not going to stifle it. It's hard to, anyway. I know some of it's vulgar, and some people, I don't have children in the background. I try to be respectful, but at the same time, it's like, it's frustrating, There's not going to be an end. Is there ever going to be? If we just did everything that they want us to do, if we're like, yes, all right, 100%, total reign, here's your control, you clamp down on every single thing that you see fit, rights be damned, you do whatever you can do to get rid of hate. Hate and conspiracy theories and misinformation, anti-Semitism, white supremacy, nationalism, all of that. You have free reign now. This lady on the screen and whoever else is like her, total control. You have all the power. Get rid of it right now. What are they going to do? They would do a lot. They would eliminate a lot of channels. They would get rid of all sorts of things that we've come to love, near and dear. And as a part of Expression, American Free, all of it, there would be so much that was lost. What's the next day look like? We wake up the next day. We no longer have any of that. All those people are in FEMA camps. Are they satisfied? Will they not go looking with all of these agencies? These people have jobs. They got families to feed. You're going to say, I'm sorry, sir, there's nothing else. We've solved the problem. Solving the problem means you're out of a job. Will you not find something more? Will they ever be satisfied? There will never be a point in time where this type of thinking, this psychopathic way of viewing society is like, we need to have control over people and their thoughts and the way they express themselves. Because it never ends. There's never going to be a point where they will be satisfied. It will always be something more. If that scenario I just gave you actually occurred, that these same people that are calling for that, they will always find more. That next day is going to be no different, even though they eliminate. Maybe they will give themselves one day of celebration. Maybe they'll tap themselves on the back and be like, look at what the utopia we have created. Until one person criticizes a band they don't like, or that they like, or says something about anything. Because people are people, and we don't always see eye to eye and have differences. That's why the First Amendment is so incredibly important, is so we can discuss things, so we can air things out. Discussion, conversation, all of these things. So we can finally arrive at what the better ideals are and understand and move forward. Not eliminating the ones that we don't agree with, but taking the people that understand it and see it and give credit where credit is due, and not think that the entire society is a bunch of morons that need to be lorded over, dictating every single move that they do. People are intrinsically, if nothing else, in support of survival. And whatever will help them survive. Good ideas, right? You don't want to do anything that's again. Like, ultimately, subconsciously, instinctively, we know what is good for us. But this artificial, arbitrary shit that they're constantly, oh, well, this speech will just, this is horrible, and this will make people think a certain way. The fact that you have to defend and silence people against it says that it should have failed. It should have already failed. You don't need to put protections on and barriers from good ideas. If this was the way that we would all naturally arrive and succumb ourselves to understand that this ideology, this way of thinking, this is the way forward, and this is what we've agreed upon, we would eventually arrive at that on our own. The fact that you have to do that and silence your other people, that is always an indication that you are not on the right side of things. When you have to force people and mandate that they participate or don't, it is always an indication that you are on the wrong side of things. History has shown us. We don't need some elaborate report from UCLA or MIT to tell us, like, this is common sense.
But what it does do is it disrupts this community of people that have been building over the last 5 years a culture of harm and harassment and incitement.
According to Professor Donovan, deplatforming might slow the growth.
Again, which is anything. Now, the very people that she may be talking about may feel the exact same thing about another group of people that are attacking them, right? Because it's never one way. There's never just one side to the story. In this case, there's a side of the story that's in power and a side of the story of the people. And the ones with power use the resources of the media, the government, their influencers, and what have you, to make it look like that. But that doesn't remove any credibility from the other side. Just because you have more power, more finances, more resources, usually it's the exact opposite of that. It's usually the ones that you're trying to silence, the ones that you're calling out to be the one, because it goes both ways. I'm very much a part of this online society that's taking place, as are you. And we can see it right in front of us and how this plays out. The left, I would dare say, the left, and I'm I mean, regardless of how I may be deemed by others, I am not right-wing and I am not left-wing. But I do see that the left attacks the right far more than the right attacks the left. Now, the right attacks the left in a little bit of a different way, more in a humorous way, right? I constantly see like jokes and memes about the left on the right. However, the left calls for like violence against the right, which is something that if the right did against the left, it would be like, yup, wrap it up, they're done, let's take them away. Which we just seen. We've seen people, this guy that wasn't even there January 6th, that psyop, right? One of the leader of the Oath Keepers, because he made a video about some of the people that were Oath Keepers there, and he was like, you know, like basically good, it's good to see. That alone, not being present, but being a leader of a group that the government Oath Keepers, that should tell you everything you need to know, right? Because they certainly aren't. Those who protect and stand by and do everything to protect the Constitution against foreign and domestic enemies. These people that took their oath seriously and they keep that oath. That's why they call themselves the Oath Keepers. Because what is the oath? Well, it's freedom. They've sworn to protect your freedom. And there's numerous militias. And they're all being attacked. And all being demonized. Now, these people don't go out of their way to attack other people. I've seen them at like the Charlottesville thing that got way out of hand. But who brought that Charlottesville out of hand? It wasn't what they call the far right. Although there was COINTELPRO that tried to start it up, it got called out, right? This happens all the time. It's the government loving, vaccine worshipping psychopaths that are constantly telling you how you should think, how you should feel, and why you shouldn't say this and why you shouldn't say, like those are the problem. But yet it's all being put on the people, just your regular people, just the same way that Ireland, your regular citizen in Ireland, just doing what they can, getting raped out of the ass and taxes, that like being pulled from every which way, doing until they start seeing children being stabbed. Then they're like, you know what? Enough's enough. Nope, that's enough. Just you putting your 2 cents in just turns you into a far right extremist. And now look at the type of legislation that's coming. It is insane. That's like we hear about Nazi Germany and stuff. That they didn't do that in Nazi Germany. They didn't. I mean, they kind of did towards the end there, but most of it didn't have that level of tyranny. Where they were just the cops. Your average fucking donut eating pig could just walk through and decide that you have this sign on your window or you have this bumper sticker on your car. That gives me suspicion enough. That leads me to believe that there's maybe something that you have that's all they need. If that bill goes through, no more free. Not that there ever was. It's kind of an illusion, but at least that illusion had somewhat of a attraction, teeth, people that valued it and believed it. But when you have a powerful tyrannical government that's willing to supersede that and do whatever they want, then they start passing bills like that. They start passing bills like what's happening here in New York with Kathy Hochul. If Texas secedes, I'm going with them.
Growth and the impact of these websites, but it can't wipe their ideology away entirely. The individuals who carry out such attacks are not the lone wolves the media often portray them as, Donovan says, noting that their manifestos suggest they are part of a growing and global white supremacist movement.
when we say that they're lone wolves, what we're pointing to is that these are disaffected people who live in isolation and are coming out of nowhere to...
This is something you're going to see too. I want you to pay attention to. Maybe not in this video, but here on out. They can't keep the lone wolf story going much further because they need to build the idea that these people are interconnected. But the lone wolf one stuck so well that they want to keep using it. So what I'm saying, yeah, I haven't seen them, Jen. It's hard to keep up with everything, so send me something and I'll definitely... it's happening all over the place, dealing with these colleges and universities and stuff. You know, like you can't say this and can't say that. But, yeah, fill me in. But I just assumed, right, because I just got done reading about Texas. The age-old Texas is going to secede from the Union. Bullshit. What it looks like to me is they want to get a bunch of people in these states like Florida, and Texas, and Arizona, and it's been working, right? We've seen the amount of people that have been moving to Florida, moving to Texas. I guess that's what, if I was a tyrant and a genius, a madman, I would do the same. I would want my enemies not scattered around, but condensed together in a place where I knew where they were. And I would set up safe havens for them, so it would seem, right? Traps. And then the time would come when those times I keep talking about here, where we start seeing these 3 to 4 attacks a week, maybe 2 to 3. And they're all going to have the same ideology. And then what states have the most ideology? And what states do most psyops happen in anyway? Florida and Texas? Seems like Florida and Texas and New York have an awfully unrelated, like compared to the rest of the United States, something's off, right? Like, what is going on between Florida, New York, and Texas? Not to say that those things politically are intertwined, right? Because clearly New York is far left. Florida is far right, as far as they say. But there's something going on here, right? In Colorado, too, you're absolutely right. Colorado was right from the jump. They were the first ones, right? With Columbine. Well, Oklahoma, too. Oklahoma was a psyop. They've been doing this shit a long time, but it's only been as of last 2 decades that they've really stepped it up when they knew that they had control, over everything. Really, they had all of the things that they needed. They have all of the big agencies under their thumb. They've been co-opted. All of the mainstream media networks, the same. Your religious institutions, all of it, right? They've captured all of it. What chance do we have? Well, we got a pretty good chance. If, and regardless how this comes out, I don't give a damn, but we got a good chance if I got a good chance.
Conduct this violence. Instead, the research is actually pointing to that these people are never alone, that they reach out online, they have a lot of questions. Mostly, they look into white supremacist theories of how political parties and media are colluding to keep white people down.
It wasn't that long ago that Scott Ernest believed in that white nationalist narrative.
I got involved by accident. It was 2004, and I was just searching the internet. I'm not even sure what I was doing, just surfing. And I came across a blog.
Like many young extremists, Ernest was radicalized online.
Eventually, it did become a community thing.
listen to how they just toss that word around now. Like many young extremists, like it's just like, oh, that's not a good thing. That is not a good thing.
In there, and you meet these people, and I mean, even if you don't necessarily like all of them, you start feeling connected to them.
He eventually became a moderator on Stormfront, a popular white nationalist website.
It's for all white nationalists. So you could be a moderate, you could be extreme, you could be KKK, you could be NSM, National Socialist.
He says he began to distance himself from them.
We live in 100% created, orchestrated, constructed world. Now, this goes much, much deeper than what I'm talking about here. Much, much deeper. But even on this level, almost everything you see is orchestrated. It's concocted. It's to make us think a certain way. And then when you see something that's just one step below that makes you think the other way, that as well has been orchestrated and concocted. All of these people that are being amplified, that seem to be saying, like your Russell Brand, your Tucker Carlson's, your Alex Jones, it basically groups in everybody, right? You got your mainstreamers, then you got your those far right. And when really someone could be argued as far left nowadays, but that's what I was saying earlier about the far left is no longer even left. It's taken its own direction. It's gone off the axes. It is no longer on the chart. So anything to that now is just everything is far right. And again, I want to reiterate that freedom, patriotism, nationalism, individualism, these are now far right ideals, which never were, but it's easier to deal with them when you can group them into a group of people that you are going to assassinate ideologically.
Movement as it became more violent.
A lot of the movement actually believe in the mass shootings.
In an email to the Wall Street Journal, Stormfront's founder, Don Black, said, "We have always clearly stated that we do not tolerate any posts even suggesting illegal violence. Any such posts are immediately deleted by moderators and the user banned."
The first time I ever questioned why I was in the movement was when Anders Breivik shot a bunch of kids in Norway. That caught my eye because at some point previous to that, Anders Breivik had actually been on my Facebook friend list under the name of Andrew Berwick.
Breivik, who murdered 77 people in 2011.
That's one of my favorite psyops, man. This guy is a sick fuck because he really did it. He really killed him. But he's also a government agent. If anybody's ever interested about that, I'll cover it. I did a lot of my own research on this and found out what the deal was here. But it was never mind. I don't want to get too far off topic. Just another bullshit story.
Has since become an icon of sorts for white nationalists. On sites like 8chan.
Who? What white nationalists? I've never seen it. Like, they keep telling us these things. If any, like the circles that they talk about and all that, I know about. I'm not necessarily involved in, but I read and am closely intertwined with many of the things that they constantly say. Well, this is who they look up. Where is there anybody that's like that fucking Norwegian that killed 70 people? Well, he's a hero. Where does that exist other than like FBI chat rooms? Right? Where they pretend to be like somebody else. Like, that's the only time when it comes spewing out of a Fed who's pretending to be a far right this or a far right that. None of it really exists. This whole reality that they're concocting, that they're creating to go after you and your rights doesn't even exist. If it did, they wouldn't have to create it. They would just cover it.
And users have celebrated his kill count for years and done so legally. That's because, vile or not, the racist and violent speech often found on sites like 8chan is protected.
Same, Shannon. Like that goes with the divides, right? Like it's white versus black and Muslim versus no, that only occurs in these federal circles of what they're talking about that they've already co-opted. And then, yes, you can go to them and you can see a federal agent pretending to be somebody spouting off shit that clearly makes no sense. That is just a bunch of words that are insightful. They're not real people. When you go looking into them, which I have the capability of doing, they're nobody. They're fake. They have no real IP address. They're not existent. They're shells. They're sock accounts. But anybody, and I'm not saying anonymity, like that's different. You can find anonymous accounts that don't say those things, and you can look at it and you can find out that those people are real if you go so choose to look. That's not the same as these fake ass accounts that put all this stuff out. Yeah, New Edge, among many, many other ones. It's just sick what they're doing now. And I've had enough. I've had enough. That's why it's time to move on to the next phase. And I think I'm jumping the gun a little bit here. I think I'm going a little too quick. And that may be the case, it may not. I don't know yet. But I'm not going to sit here for another half a year, basically, on this channel without doing what I think I need to do. Like, it's time to get it going.
Protected under the First Amendment.
There's much discussion about social media, its implications, the harms done, and the question is posed: what should government do about social media?
Civil libertarians like John.
Nothing. Government shouldn't do anything about social media. You know why? Because it cannot be anything that's done on social media that isn't covered under free speech. And you know what? There's already laws that are in place that if you start calling for violence on anybody, then that's it. That's all we need. We don't need more and more laws. The government's going to always try to tell you they want to protect you. We want to just help you. We love you. We care for you. We want to do everything we can. Just make sure you're safe. Oh, that's great. What do we need to do? Just give us some of your rights. Give us more of your freedoms. Okay, I guess, but I don't see how that's going to help. No, it won't help you. It's going to help us a lot, though, in our control scheme for this beast system that we're currently building.
John Samples are skeptical of any government reforms, arguing that regulation of speech will backfire and be abused.
We have very strong protection.
Of course it would be abused.
And that's going to mean that there's not much government can do.
But that hasn't damped calls for reform. For her part, Professor Donovan would like to see legislation regulating the amplification of hate speech.
This is where the free market comes into play. Like always. If people are so hell-bent on protecting their dear eyes from reading things that, let's say X is as bad as they're making it out to be. So Granny jumps on X and she sees like, oh my goodness, this is just horrible. You don't have to use it. You don't have to, you can just not click on that anymore. And companies want to make money, and they want as many people as a part of their site. So if they start getting a lot of grannies saying like, oh my, this is too much, then they're going to do their own. If they start getting public backlash saying, we're allowed to say too much, we can say everything that we want, this is just over the top. If enough people did that, then they could come in and say, yeah, well, we're going to crack down then. And then if you didn't like it, you have the option of going somewhere else. Government intervention is never a good thing. People, there could be arguments made, and trust me, I've heard them, and I'll argue with you back and tell you why that same thing could have been done minus the government with less problems. I do understand a certain level of bureaucracy. I get it. You don't need government to do it. You really don't. I'm not, that's kind of like a pipe dream. I'm not advocating for no government. Even though that would be what I would do. I'm realistic. And I know that most people, that's too far gone from that. And most people like to be told what to do and have a type of framework in place. That's fine. And that can exist. But that always tends to get out of control because that body that we create, history has shown us, always wants more. They always want more power, more say over your lives. And then it grows and it takes more of your money. Do you realize what Boston Tea Party, the taxation? Do you realize what this war will do? What's being taken out of your paycheck right now? How much does your gross say? And how much do you bring home? There have been wars fought for a fraction of that. We put in all these hours, all this hard time, we do everything we can. We want to feed our families, but the government is just yanking huge amounts of money. Huge amounts of money, almost half your damn paycheck. I live in New York, so it damn near is half my paycheck. What are they doing with it? Oh, well, Ukraine. Yeah, I said, no, I don't. And most of America doesn't. So where's the democracy in that? You're spending our money on things that most of America doesn't agree with. Is that okay? Are we no, that's a far-right extremist. Don't you say it. It's time to really start holding people accountable. That's not hate speech. They'll say it is. They'll also say it's anti-Semitic, but that's an admission on their own part, just like when I was covering Henry Kissinger. They'll do everything they can to silence the people that are calling them out for what they are. Yeah, and it's sickening, really, Jen. It really is. If you stop and think about where we are right now, and they just want to keep going up with it, right? Like, well, we need more money. Like, how about you get things in order? We need to suspend the current government, put in our own, maybe find I got ways. I think this could work, honestly, and all of the people that have ever stood in the way of our freedoms, that have advocated against them, there needs to be a tribunal. There needs to be something that happens where there is at least a fair trial for these people that have sworn to uphold. They're sworn to uphold your rights. But once they get in, they do everything they can to take those very rights from you, because you're using those rights in a way that they don't agree with. And of course, that's the case. What would we need rights enshrined in a document for, unless that were to be the case? If it was all in agreement all the time, there wouldn't be the need for it, right? Just like the First Amendment as kind of a, what's the word? Is emblematic, I guess, of that. You wouldn't need the First Amendment if everybody was always saying what everybody wanted to hear. The reason we have it, the reason it's protected, is because every once in a while somebody says something that we don't want to hear. They themselves have just as much of a right to say it as you would. or you do, when you say what you want that may offend them. There is no objective truth when it comes to ideas, when it comes to opinions. And no one will ever make it so, regardless of how hard the government tries to. And those that do are clearly not doing what they've sworn to do by upholding all of our freedoms, and they need to be held accountable for it. Now that's a little ways off. That's quite a ways off. But we may never even get there if we just keep allowing this type of shit to happen, for them to move on to the next thing and say, well, yeah, well, and now it's happening so quick. Back in COVID, I was talking about Blitzkrieg a lot because that's what it felt like. And I said COVID would always be used as a force multiplier, and I think it still will. But they're going to come at us with as much as they can and change it every week and being like, well, this hate, extremism, conspiracy theory. And changing it constantly to the point where people just get exhausted and they're like, you know what, whatever. Just do you, government. Do you. Like, yeah, pass the legislation. Oh, fine, whatever. I'm tired of hearing it. That's what they're counting on. I'm going to get wrapping it up, guys. Unfortunately, I never do get through a lot of the stuff I wanted to cover, but there's always tomorrow. Or is there? I don't know. If anybody for some reason hasn't subscribed to Scratching the Surface 1 at Scratching the Surface 1, please go do so. Hit the thumbs up. Like I said, it's time for the next phase of this. I'm going to jump the gun a little early on that one. So let's get that started. All right. Hopefully you all have a good night, good day tomorrow. Hopefully the whole week is great for you. Buy a lottery ticket, maybe just one. Don't get crazy. You're not probably going to win, but maybe you will. Maybe help an old lady across the street. Maybe take the time, do something, bring do something. Take a couple minutes out of the norm and do something that you normally don't do. Call up a friend that you haven't spoken with in a while. Talk to a family member that you haven't and invite them over for lunch. Do something that you haven't done and get people that used to be maybe close to you that have kind of fallen just outside that circle. Bring them back in. Keep it real. Much love. God bless. See you tomorrow.